UFC Vegas 90. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event is Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2. Looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash the likes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. And also note, live for the entire card, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, early start. Make sure you guys tune into the Fight Companion. And let's get into the first fight on the card. We got Melissa Tonya Mullins versus Nora Cornolle. Originally it was Melissa Dixon, recent name change for. Listen, I'm going with Mullins to get it done over Cornolle. I was not impressed overly by Cornolle in the debut. She took on Jocelyn Edwards. Close decision. I remember watching it originally and thinking that it kind of could have went towards Jocelyn Edwards. It was competitive, but not impressive by any aspect. I don't think Cornolle's all that top caliber. I think Melissa Dixon on the other side is a bit better, even though Irina Alekseeva is maybe a bit of fleeting fighter, and that was the win for Mullins last time out. She's kind of a hot or cold type style. I still think that Mullins could beat a Nora Cornolle. I think she's the better grappler. I don't think she's a dead fish in the striking department. Cornolle might come from a good Thai background, but she doesn't have like crazy explosiveness or crazy knockout power. To me, it would be Cornolle outpointing Mullins for 3 rounds, but then you think about the small cage at the UFC Apex. That's a big factor. It's a fight night at the Apex, and I think that favors fighters that do good work in close range, good work controlling, good work with takedowns. And I'll go Mullins to win, and I believe decision probably. So Melissa Mullins, minus 325 the favorite with Nora Cornolle at plus 275. Very juiced up line, but I do think Melissa Dixon gets her hand raised. I have a pretty strong hunch that we're going distance here between these two ladies. So I'm going to go Melissa Tonya Mullins, a.k.a. Melissa Dixon. Unanimous decision to start the night off. Next fight on the card, we got Dylan Budka versus César Almeida. I'm going to go with Dylan Budka to win. He's young at only 24 years of age, and César Almeida, 36, and a lot of kickboxing experience. But the thought process that I have is Almeida, though he has quality kickboxing, I worry about what happens when Budka pressures him, especially, again, UFC Apex. I think this favors Budka to close the gap. I think Budka could land some takedowns and garner control time from top position. I see it as a competitive fight. Almeida is definitely the cleaner striker, obviously with the pro kickboxing background, but I think Budka's going to make him uncomfortable on the feet with the potential takedown threat here, and I do think success with the takedowns. You look, Dylan Budka beat Chad Honeycomb in kind of a snoozer fight on Dana White's Contender Series, but, you know, it is what it is, how the fights sometimes unfold there. And César Almeida on the other side, he pulled it off against Lucas Fernando, and he was impressive. I picked César Almeida as a dog against Fernando, but I think Fernando's more clunky in the striking, and he doesn't have the same physicality that Budka has. You also got to look at something. 7-2 in Pro MMA versus 4-0 in Pro MMA. Big age difference. Oh, but Almeida had a ton of kickboxing fights. Yes, that is combat experience, but nonetheless, it's a different sport. And I know at one point Almeida even has a W over Alex Pereira in kickboxing, but I don't think he's extremely devastating. I don't think he's going to murder the 24-year-old Dylan Budka. Budka has a split decision loss here against a 15-3 Azat Barkaev, and you see that EV at the end of the name. Does that jump my confidence? Like maybe just a tad for Budka to be able to tie up with Almeida, land takedowns, and garner control time. Not really a fight that I'm interested betting-wise. It's minus 170 for Budka, Almeida plus 150. It's close, and I see it as a competitive matchup. Over 2.5 is minus 170. I think it's likely to go over 2.5. Budka from range has a striking edge slightly, but I don't think it's like super substantial because I feel like Budka is going to smother his shots a lot. And I think Budka is going to take down Almeida. See it as a close fight. I see it as a decision win for Budka here. Next fight on the card, we got Gene Matsumoto versus Dan Argueta. Gonna go with the undefeated Brazilian Gene Matsumoto. The reason I'm picking him is because he has a good balance of submissions and knockouts, right? You look at his career, he's not just grappling threat. He's got 5 subs. He's got 3 knockouts, and he's got 6 decisions. He has quality kickboxing, but I like the jiu-jitsu skill set as well, and I like the takedown offense and grappling defense. Dan Argueta on the other side has good pressure wrestling, but I have a hard time picking Argueta regardless of how it was a while ago. It was on, The Ultimate Fighter, but he did lose to Ricky Tercios. And he did lose to Damon Jackson up a weight class. And he just got dominated by Miles Johns in a fight that got overturned to a no contest. I feel like Matsumoto's a talented prospect. Now, he's only 24. And if you look at the odds for this fight, Matsumoto's a near 2-1 favorite as an unproven 24-year-old inside of the UFC. And Dan Argueta, he's got UFC experience now, right? 1-1 in the UFC with 2 no contests. He was doing well against Ronnie Lawrence in a fight that ended up being a no contest. I feel like Matsumoto could outpoint him in what should be a pretty competitive affair. I like Matsumoto on the cards. I know Dan Argueta is a UFC bet, and I like backing UFC vets against debuting guys, but I feel like Matsumoto has a quality fight IQ. I feel like he picks his shots well, and I feel like he could stop Argueta's takedowns, and he's going to be the better striker from distance. So I think Gene Matsumoto can pull this one off against a dangerous dog. -180 Matsumoto, Argueta +155. I feel like the over rounds at -260 is, a more confident call, I guess you could say, than the straight money line. I don't think you're crazy for betting Dan Argueta as an underdog here, but I feel like Gene Matsumoto is very skilled. And though Argueta has good pressure and there's an option of takedowns for sure, if Matsumoto can stop the takedowns, I think in kickboxing, you got to favor Matsumoto. And if you're talking about competitive grappling between the two, Matsumoto would be more live for a submission. So it would need to be Dan Argueta grinding out a win. And I'm not going to rely on that. So I'm going to pick Matsumoto to pull it off and remain undefeated. Good Contender Series prospect. Next fight on the card, Cynthia Calvillo versus Piera Rodriguez. I'm going to pick the side of Piera Rodriguez, not because I think she's that good. Cynthia Calvillo's not horrible. But, bro, you're asking me to pick a 5-fight losing streak, Cynthia Calvillo? Might be 6 fights. Let's see. Yeah, 5-fight losing streak. She was on a split decision with Lupi Godinez. I thought it was a clean decision. Then it was a year and 7 months ago with Nina Nunes. Andrea Lee lost. Andrade lost. Sermonaro. Not like she's losing to horrible opposition. Fair to say, right? I think Piera Rodriguez is mid, though. She did beat, Sam Hughes, Kay Hansen, Vanessa Machado. You know what, man? You know what? Initially, I wrote down coin flip, and I thought about picking Calvillo. And then I said, no, I'm going to go with the favorite, Piera Rodriguez. But when I'm playing this fight through in my head, I don't think Piera Rodriguez is that impressive with the stand-up. And I don't think she has great control on the ground. I think Calvillo can mix it up well with her on the feet. I'm going against what I said earlier, so scratch that. Now, obviously, you can say, yo, AJ, you just said earlier in the video, you're picking Piera Rodriguez, and now you're flipping to Calvillo. You know what? I am. And it's not like a complete pick flip, because you know what? This is the official prediction for the fight now. Calvillo by decision just is making sense to me the more I run it through. Like, I was initially going to pick Piera Rodriguez because of momentum, but I think she's mid. I think her striking is average at best. I think her grappling is okay. I think Calvillo's the better wrestler. I don't think she's a dead fish striking. A split decision with Lupi Godinez, regardless, yeah, she clearly probably should have lost in a close fight, is more impressive than a loss by submission to Jillian Robertson and a win over Sam Hughes. Now, we're going Cynthia Calvillo because my initial early gut feeling was Calvillo for the upset. And then I'm like, no, 9-1, fall into the record. Fuck it. I'm going with a 9-6 fighter over a 9-1 fighter who I believe is just not that good. As far as the odds, Calvillo +134, Piera Rodriguez -154. My gosh, my eyes are on fire right now. I got sweat leaking into them over here, man. Like I tell you guys in the live streams, man, this room gets hot, but I can't leave the fan on for the full card breakdown because if not, you're going to hear a buzzing sound. We'll go Calvillo as a dog. I'm not telling you throw the house on her, but I think she's a live underdog. It's a women's fight, probably going over. -350 for the over. Listen, the overconfidence is through the roof. I think I got to back Calvillo as a dog, and another reason is the small cage. I'm like, Calvillo tying up against the cage. Trip takedowns are there. We're going to go with Calvillo. We're going with Calvillo here. Next fight on the card, we got Alateng versus Victor Hugo. My gosh, this card is giving me hell to pick from. I'm going with Alateng over Victor Hugo because Victor Hugo seems to need this fight on the ground. I'm not overly impressed by the striking. And Alateng is not an easy guy to contain on the mat. He's got a wrestling base, and he also has got kind of heavy hands. So Hugo does have better jiu-jitsu, I think, for a fact. But is he going to go out there and strangle Alateng? If you look at Alateng, he's lost one fight by submission, and it was not inside of the UFC. Like, we got to dig back on the record. He was armbarred in 2015, guys, when he had a losing record at the time. He was 3-4. Since that point, he's really turned it up. Now, Victor Hugo, 24-4. Beautiful record on paper. Alateng is a UFC experienced veteran. What is he, 4-2-1 in the UFC? I got to give respect to that. He beat Chad and Helliger, and honestly, Chad and Helliger is fucking gritty. Lost to Chris Gutierrez, who's a clean, proven striker and ranked opposition, regardless of him sometimes fighting like a wuss. Fight before that, Kevin Kroom knockout. You know what? Kevin Kroom's doing bare knuckle. Gustavo Lopez draw. This is a long time ago. Casey Kenny. Victor Hugo's most impressive win to date. He beat Eduardo Cot. 16-1 fighter. He got a knee bar sub on him. But I just worry about the jiu-jitsu versus the wrestling. Then I got Alateng, whose hands are kind of heavy. He's got a bit of stinging shots. And if Hugo can't get control of the back, if Hugo can't get on top, he's not going to sub Alateng from bottom. And if they're in striking, I don't think Hugo is a maestro. I'm going with Alateng to pull it off. It's going to be a good fight. Could be close, too. I'm thinking a lot of decisions right now. I actually really hope that I'm wrong on these methods of victory, because right now, looking at it, we're fucking going long. It's lucky they're starting at 3 p.m. That's probably why they're doing it at 3 p.m., because we're about to have a decision-heavy card. Alateng is what? Plus 135 to Hugo, minus 165, but as low as plus 105. I would say underdog Alateng over 2.5, minus 115. I think Alateng is a very live underdog. I got to favor the UFC experience. Now, I know I didn't favor UFC experience with Dan Argueta to Gene Matsumoto. Fair, but different matchup. I think Alateng is a little bit of a level jump ahead of a guy like Dan Argueta. And Victor Hugo's also 31. So I feel like his level is kind of shown. We'll find out. I don't know. I was high on Hugo early on, but I went back and rewatched the Contender Series fight again. And I'm like, wasn't as impressive as I initially thought. And I think that Alateng is going to be able to stop the grappling attempts. And I think he could hurt Hugo with punches on the feet. It'd be crazy. Alateng chins Hugo. So many times Hugo's been knocked out. 2 knockout losses. Interesting. How long ago was it? Rib injury? It's not even a knockout. And here, Felipe Froes. I'll be honest, I didn't see that Froes fight. It's way back in 2013. Wouldn't be crazy if Alateng dropped some heavy hands on him and stopped Hugo if Hugo's caught up in a striking match. So be careful with the over. I like Alateng as an underdog. Next fight on the card. Ladies going after it. We got Norma Dumont versus Germaine de Randamie. Are you kidding me? This fight here. The reason I'm laughing is because who I'm about to pick. But before I pick it, Norma Dumont is dropping from women's 145. Germaine de Randamie is the former 145 women's champ. She also hasn't fought in like 3+ years. And her latest fight, it was a win over Juliana Pena, who I would say is arguably the best women's bantamweight that isn't retired. Amanda Nunes obviously would be the best then. And she seems to be better than Raquel Pennington, the current champ. Oh my gosh. I'm picking a 40-year-old, nearly 40-year-old, Germaine de Randamie to win. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Her birthday's a day after the fight. Give good luck to de Randamie for the B-Day. The reason that I feel she's going to win is she's obviously the better striker. Norma Dumont's not going out there and winning that impressively, okay? She beat Chelsea Chandler. Chandler's tough, but not Germaine de Randamie level. Carl Holster's decent enough. She's okay. Danielle Wolf was 1-0, and like, yeah, they went distance. It wasn't a crazy like wipeout of a fight. She lost to Macy Chiasson, who's tall with long reach, like Germaine de Randamie, and then she beat Aspen Ladd. If de Randamie can create some kind of space from Norma Dumont, or even if she can stay active inside of the clinch, I think she can win the fight. And the fact that she submitted Juliana Pena, I think there's a threat of submission here, too. I'm going to go Germaine de Randamie to pull it off. I think she wins this thing. De Randamie should win. I would love to see a knockout with some elbows, but de Randamie plus 160. I'm going with the 40-year-old. At open, she was plus 180, so she's been the dog. Dumont minus 185. Dumont's going to try to clinch all fight. Over 2.5, minus 350. Dumont's going to try to clinch. Everybody's picking Dumont by decision, 71%. And I see why, because de Randamie has not fought in so damn long. But I sit there and I ask myself, if she can come back looking to the level that she left, I feel as though she beats Norma Dumont. Now I'm going to say this. If Norma Dumont beats Germaine de Randamie, like, she's kind of the number one contender at 135, aside from Juliana Pena. So I guess number 2. You'll say, bro, but de Randamie's been out for how long? Still top caliber, right? The loss was to Nunes. And you remember that Nunes needed takedowns there. She could not strike with de Randamie. So if de Randamie could stop Norma Dumont's takedowns, because Norma Dumont's not that good of a wrestler. She's a good clinch fighter, good control. I'm going for Germaine de Randamie as a dog here. I'm going underdog de Randamie. Let's go. Let's go. Underdog. Do I got 3 dogs in a row? Holy shit. Yes, I do. Fuck it. Maybe we keep it going. Let's get to our next fight. It's our featured prelim of the night. We got Court McGee versus Alex Morono. Guys, this one ain't no underdog. It's Alex Morono, and I do think he's going to knock Court McGee out. McGee's a tough veteran. He's well-rounded. He's physically strong. He's got okay striking. He's too slow for Morono, though. Morono's got good overhand shots, like chopping punches. He moves really well. And how good did his loss to Buckley age after last Saturday? Buckley just destroyed Luque. Morono went 3 rounds. Alex Morono's pretty good. And I think Court McGee is washed at this point. Win over Tim Means by subs, impressive. Ponzinibbio slept him, but he was winning the fight. Semmelsberger win. Gall win. I think Morono can knock McGee out. Morono's problem is he historically is getting a lot of decisions, but he did sub Tim Means. Could he sub an OG like Court McGee? Maybe. Court McGee, though, is getting chinned left and right. Had 2 wins over Claudio Silva and Brahima. But look at these losses. Knockout, knockout. I think Alex Morono's live for the KO. I think he might catch McGee with an overhand. A nearly 40-year-old McGee. I think time has passed McGee by, and I think Morono's going to chin him. And I'm very confident in Morono. Minus 280, Morono. Bro, he's a lock. Minus 310 now. Yeah, he's a lock. The line just flipped. Plus 260 for McGee. Over is minus 140. I think I might go under at plus 110. I like Morono to win as a big favorite, but I also think knockout is live. I think Morono's chinning him. I'm very excited. Morono is a high-confidence pick. I knew that coming into the show, and I couldn't wait to talk about this fight. I'm a fan of Morono. Who the fuck's not? His style is very entertaining. He mixes it up well on the feet. He moves really well, and he's not an easy guy to crack. And on the opposite side, Court McGee doesn't have a huge punch. Morono doesn't have very questionable grappling skills or takedown defense. McGee's caught striking, and he's going to be sleeping. Alex Morono, knockout win. Good featured prelim. Let's jump to the main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Trevor Peek versus Charlie Campbell to start off the main card. I'm picking Charlie Campbell nervously, okay? Because he's a 2-1 favorite. And I don't love that. But why am I picking him confidently? Because he's clearly better than Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek is powerful. He's crazy. He's chaotic with his striking. He's athletic. He hits hard. He's also really physically strong. And he has a good chin. Charlie Campbell is a way more technical striker. The problem would lie here is Charlie Campbell getting caught with a big shot. Chris Duncan was able to catch Charlie Campbell, but Duncan is a lot better than Trevor Peek, technically speaking. Charlie Campbell's hands are pretty good. I like the jab. I'm seeing him jabbing up Trevor Peek, and I think Peek is actually going to struggle closing the gap. And Charlie Campbell has legit power. 6 knockout wins opposite 2 decisions. On the other side, Trevor Peek, who's got this crazy, chaotic style, has got 1 knockout UFC debut, and he got a knockout on Contender. But last time out, Muhammad Yahya, who I think is mid as fuck, he beat by decision, and then Chepe Mariscal put it on him, and Mariscal's a featherweight. I think Charlie Campbell's live to knock out Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek has so many flaws in his striking that somebody with a technical style that throws straight down the line, as does Charlie Campbell, is so live to knock him out. Ultimately, the way Charlie Campbell loses is if he just leaves his chin up, goes too crazy, and Pete catches him with a looping shot. But I don't think that happens. I think Charlie Campbell is going to end up laying out Trevor Peek. I'm going Campbell KO. Campbell is minus 225. Peek is minus 190. I think these odds are lined up right. Under 1.5, minus 170. Wow. I was going to say under 2.5, minus 170. Fuck yeah, but under 1.5. I think Campbell could catch him early, though. Now, granted, Charlie Campbell's UFC debut was against the corpse of Alex Reyes, who hadn't fought in like 6 years. And then fight before that, he got a knockout win in CFFC, and he got chinned by Chris Duncan. But he was whooping Chris Duncan's ass before he got chinned. I think Charlie Campbell's going to knock him out. As I'm talking about this fight, you can see my confidence builds because I'm playing it through in my head as I'm breaking it down to you guys. I think Peek is going to get caught with a lot of straight punches on the outside. I think he's going to try to get a little crazy and maybe even overzealous to land a big shot, and I think Campbell's going to fold him. Charlie Campbell, knockout win. Hell yes. I can't wait for this fight. Next fight on the card, Łukasz Brzeski versus Valter Walker. Okay, I'm going to pick Valter Walker because I can't pick against Johnny Walker's brother, whose first name is Valter. What the fuck? The dude just seems like a villain out of a horror movie. And he's absolutely jacked. Suspiciously jacked. They drug testing over in Russia? Probably not. Because the fucking muscles on this guy's back and shoulders are freakish. He's every bit of 265, and the dude is 26. Holy hell. I think Valter Walker's going to get control of Brzeski, drag him to the ground, and beat him up. Brzeski's like a kind of skinny, fat heavyweight. He's 30 pounds lighter. Walker's going to be consistent landing takedowns and getting some control. Walker's definitely a crazy striker, and you know he's Johnny Walker's brother, the way that he throws these wild flurries and looks for knockouts. Łukasz Brzeski on the other side, he's okay. He's got a very simple striking game, basic, decent straights. I mean, he probably should have beaten Martin Buday in his debut, but Buday's kind of mid too. Like, come on. Even me saying mid, you're like, yo, you're kind of overrating Martin Buday. I think I'm overrating him. Brzeski got dominated too by Williams. I think Walker's got the takedown threat. Waldo chinned him, and I think that Valter Walker is going to knock him out. Alex Nicholson, they went long, though. Like, he hasn't really beaten anybody all that good. I mean, you see an OV. I mean, regardless of who it is, you see OVs. You got to give it some respect. Oliveira. But this is the biggest win. It was against Alex Nicholson. And Alex Nicholson's an ex-UFC fighter. He's fighting in the, Game Bred FC, doing bare knuckle now. I think Valter Walker can get a TKO here. I think ground and pound is live. I think he could beat him up on the floor. I'm going to pick Valter. Valter Walker. Badass name, more badass than Łukasz Brzeski, and the clean monster, I think, gets it done. I don't know how this dude's 26. I don't know how he's 26. Plus 280 for Brzeski, minus 340 for Walker. Over 1.5, minus 140. I think the over 1.5 is live, but if the line was flipped, I'd be much more interested. Seems like people realize that Valter Walker, even though he's got that knockout potential, like he went 4 rounds last time out. And honestly, in itself, it's impressive to see a heavyweight with that much muscle go 4 rounds. And he didn't look like that exhausted. So I got to give Valter Walker some damn respect here. I'm picking him to win. I'm picking him to get a stoppage. I think he's finishing Łukasz Brzeski, and I'm excited to see his debut. We've been waiting for this debut for a while for Johnny Walker's brother. I'm excited to see what he's got. Next fight on the card. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos. Ignacio Bahamondes should slice him up. Bahamondes should win this fight, guys. He should out-kickbox Giagos. I do think he can rock Giagos and even submit him. I want to pick violence here. I don't know. I'm just anticipating a violent fight. I think Bahamondes by KO is making a lot of sense. But inside distance betting-wise, if you're on the betting side of things, isn't crazy either. Because I think you could sub him. We saw Giagos sub by Zellhuber, who has a very similar frame to Ignacio Bahamondes. You look at Christos Giagos' last few, the loss to Zellhuber, a win over Ricky Glenn, who's chinny, lost to Thiago Moises by sub, Sarukian chinned him, and then Sean Soriano win. Bahamondes, he's a quality prospect. I mean, the loss to Ludovic Klein in the moment was horrible. But we realize that Ludovic Klein is an absolute stud striker, and that's not a bad loss at all for Bahamondes. Had a win over Trey Ogden, and that aged like fine wine because Ogden is pretty good. Rong Zhu submission win. Sub could be live here. And then Roosevelt Roberts knockout. I think Bahamondes can get a KO over Christos Giagos. I think he's going to chin him, especially a 34-year-old Giagos who's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. Looking at the odds for it, Bahamondes minus 315, but it's going to hit here. Giagos plus 265. I don't think Giagos is a good dog. Minus 200 for the over 1.5. I think it could hit into the second round, but I don't know. The 1.5 might be better. Plus 160. I'm thinking this is a violent fight. I am. 94% of the people on Bahamondes. Wow. Yeah, I think Bahamondes is winning. Christos Giagos is tough, and he's a vet of the game. He's fairly well-rounded. He's got some power. He rocked Huber last time. Got to give some respect. He's not a horrible fighter. I just think Bahamondes should beat him. So I'm going to go Ignacio Bahamondes to win. Yes, he's a fair-sized favorite, but is anybody surprised by that? He's been a hyped-up prospect for some time. He's got a very menacing frame at 6'3", with a 75.5-inch reach. At the UFC lightweight division, he's a damn freak. And I think that Bahamondes is consistently getting better, too, at only 26. He should knock Giagos out. I think he's going to finish him. Inside distance call. Maybe even submission if you're looking for big plus. We'll see what the props look like later on throughout the week. Next fight on the card, we got Morgan Charriere versus Chepe Mariscal. When I first looked at this one, I'm like, Morgan Charriere is dangerous as a prospect. He's slick. But then it hits me that he's 19-9. And I'm like, Chepe Mariscal, why would I not pick him? I think Chepe Mariscal is a very live underdog here. I'm going to pick with Chepe. I think he lands takedowns of Morgan Charriere. I think Charriere is pretty good. Debut win here against Manello Zaccini. And, you know, I'm Italian, mamma mia. I'd kick Zaccini's ass, okay? And I'm sitting here talking about the fights, all right? I don't think Manello Zaccini's that good. And hopefully, you know, he doesn't actually hate me. I'm kind of fucking around. I mean, I will fight him if I have to. But Manello Zaccini is UFC, whatever. Regardless of that fact, what I'm saying is I don't think Manello Zaccini is a UFC caliber fighter. I think he's probably one of the worst guys on the roster I've ever seen. And he's Italian, I know. But fuck it, I tell it as he is. He sucks. He sucks. He's not good. And that was his win in the UFC. Chepe Mariscal has a legit win over Jack Jenkins, who was a highly touted prospect. A win over Trevor Peek, who's an absolute savage. And if you dig into the record of Chepe Mariscal, you realize he has fought quality opposition time and time again. Yusuf Zalal win. That is aged like fine wine. Pat Sabatini win. Went distance with Bryce Mitchell. You see Brito. You see Steve Garcia. You see a lot of names. Morgan Charriere is on a nice 4-fight winning streak here. But these names don't ring bells, right? These are Cage Warriors fighters. They're regional tier fighters in Europe. And he does have a loss here to Paul Hughes. I think that Chepe Mariscal makes this a scrap. I think he threatens with takedowns. Listen, the French had success Friday when Manon Fiorot. I think the success ends right here when Chepe Mariscal gets a W over Morgan Charriere. I think Chepe by decision. Scrappy fight, tricky style. I think Charriere is going to be fending off so many takedowns. And again, we're at the UFC Apex, so you know what? The pressure wrestling is something that I like here. And I think Chepe can get a scrappy decision. Odds for the fight. Mariscal plus 126. At open, Mariscal was plus 125, so about the same. Minus 146 for Charriere. I do think we're going over 2.5 at minus 185. I'm going to pick Chepe Mariscal by a decision. I think he can beat Morgan Charriere. Charriere's got the look for sure, and I think he's solid. I just don't feel like he's that dude. And I think Chepe Mariscal in his face for 3 rounds, he's a very good underdog. Mariscal is always a good underdog play, and I think that he can get a gritty win over Morgan Charriere and make it an ugly fight, and that's where Mariscal is going to shine. And 60% of the people also picking Mariscal. Interesting. Popular people's underdog. That's kind of scary. I don't like being with everybody else. I like doing my own thing. Like last week, Kyle Nelson, Nate Landwehr. That was me doing my own thing. I do think Chepe wins, though. I'm going with Chepe Mariscal by a gritty decision. Next fight is our co-main event of the evening. We got Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. I'm going to pick Alexander Hernandez to win. I think he's going to be a lot faster than Damon Jackson. I do think he'll be able to stop Jackson's wrestling. And I think he'll bust him up on the feet. I can see him sleeping Damon Jackson, to be honest, man. The win over Jim Miller is aged like fine wine. And then he lost to Bill Algeo, but that's not a bad loss. Billy Q beat him. Moicano subbed him up. Win over Mike Breeden, who's horrible. Then you see what? Billy Q lost. Dan Ige knockout loss. But wins there. I mean, he had a nice little streak going. I think Alexander Hernandez beats a Damon Jackson, though. Knockout could happen, but I'm not overly hype about calling a knockout. I think Hernandez touches him a bit in the striking. I think he stops Jackson's takedowns. Jackson is not athletic, but he does have good pressure. He does have good grit. He has takedown option, right? But Hernandez should be pretty mobile, pretty good hips, should stop some takedowns, should touch up Jackson on the feet. And I do think Hernandez is live to win a decision or even a knockout. Let's see here. Where Hernandez, how many KOs? We got 6 KOs. Opposite 3 KO losses. But lucky, Damon Jackson's not too heavy-handed. Jackson's been KO'd 4 times. Ige, Topuria, Kubelaev, and Kevin Aguilar. Bro, I think knockout for Hernandez might be live here, too. I think he could stun Jackson. But hard to say I'd want to bet Hernandez by a KO. Minus 205 for Alexander Hernandez. Damon Jackson plus 175. And now the over is plus 145. Interesting. I think we could go 3 rounds. Even though I was kind of thinking Hernandez by KO. Plus 145 for an over 2.5 in a fight between 2 gritty guys. Neither guy is that impressive in the stand-up, but Hernandez is better. But Hernandez is never shown to have like crazy one-shot knockout power. It's more going to be volume and accumulation. Maybe the over. I like Hernandez to win, though, nonetheless, as a 2-1 favorite. He should beat Damon Jackson, and I got to make a complaint right the fuck now. This is the co-main event. This is the co-main event. For UFC Vegas 90, this is the co-main event. Come on. I know 300 is next week. I know. But, bro, come on. This is not a co-main event on any card in the UFC, period. The fuck? Let's go to the next one. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2. I'm picking Chris Curtis to win again, even on short notice. Watching their first fight, I'm so convinced that Chris Curtis has the key to victory here. He doesn't just head strike. He works the body well, and he's going to be ripping Brendan Allen with body punches. I don't think Brendan Allen is going to have the power to keep Chris Curtis off of him for the most part. And you're going to look at Brendan Allen and you're going to say, bro, look at the momentum. Look at the improvement. I understand. I get the Brendan Allen side. But look at the opposition as opposed to his current opponent being Chris Curtis, okay? Paul Craig is not a devastating striker. He's a grappler. Bruno Silva just lost to Chris Weidman. Yeah, the eye pokes galore, but he didn't look good. Andre Muniz only has jiu-jitsu. Christoph Jotko is in PFL now, and he got popped for steroids. Jacob Malkoun almost arguably won this fight. Chris Curtis on the opposite side is still a hell matchup for Brendan Allen. Allen's on a great roll, beating good opposition. Yes, he's gotten better. His striking P's and Q's might be superior to what they were last time out, but that doesn't mean Chris Curtis is not going to find openings. Chris Curtis fights well from southpaw. He's ripping shots straight to the body, slowly but surely finding his big punches. I think he can rock Brendan Allen again. And Chris Curtis has 92% takedown defense rate. He stopped all of Adolfo Vieira's takedown attempts. Brendan Allen doesn't score a lot of takedowns over the 3 rounds. Now, this is a 5-round fight, but normally 3-round fights, like 1 point something takedowns per 15 minutes for Brendan Allen versus 92% takedown defense. Chris Curtis has iron hips. He's got punching power. Chris Curtis is not getting bullied on the ground by anybody, really. And you look at his recent fights. Marc-Andre Barriault, it was not impressive. It was not impressive. He looked like shit in that fight. Could it have just been that maybe Chris Curtis didn't have an A-tier night and Barriault was scrappy? Barriault was trying to strike with him too and was trying to be nasty and close. Brendan Allen doesn't have the Muay Thai that Barriault has. Yes, I think Brendan Allen would beat a guy like Marc-Andre Barriault, but it's the styles that make the fights. Nasruddin Imavov, no contest. Imavov's a good point striker from the outside. It's a no contest. He was losing. Kelvin Gastelum, there was a serious head clash that threw that fight. So realistically, not a bad loss. Win over Buckley by knockout, and he did get outstruck by Jack Hermansson. Hermansson kept him at bay. It was a 3-round fight. Brendan Allen's got to deal with him for 5 rounds, and I don't think that Brendan Allen can fight with the same calmness and calculated style for 5 whole rounds that somebody like Jack Hermansson can do. I think Chris Curtis is going to end up stopping him again. It might be later. It might be 3rd or 4th round this time. But I do think Chris Curtis wins as an underdog. And I got to respect the punching power and also the shot selection from Chris Curtis. Plus 165, I got the dog. Minus 190 for Brendan Allen on the opposite front. Over 2.5, minus 120. I think it goes over 1.5. I think Chris Curtis can beat him again. I'm having such a hard time seeing Brendan Allen choking out Chris Curtis. Because that's how he's got to win. He's got to get the fight to the floor. Now, sure, he could win rounds and end up taking it on the judges' scorecards in a 5-rounder. But I'm not confident that he's going to be comfortable on the feet for long enough. I think Brendan Allen, too, in the small cage. I know in a lot of the other fights, they talked about the advantage of the small cage. Here for Brendan Allen, I don't think he has great takedowns against the cage, and I don't think Chris Curtis is easy to take down against the cage either. He's going to be forced into close-range striking, and Chris Curtis is going to land some bombs. I got Chris Curtis to win it. I think he's beaten Brendan Allen for a second time. Chris Curtis, once again, to pull it off over Brendan Allen. That is UFC Vegas 90. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Make sure you all smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn those post notifications on. Content every day this week. Make sure you guys keep your eyes locked in on the channel. Almost at 30,000 subs, so make sure you sub it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Much love, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.